I move that the Education and Training Early Childhood Education Reform Amendment Bill be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I want to take you back to a convention centre in Wellington in mid-2023, filled with around 500 representatives of early childhood centres up and down the country. It was a pre-election political briefing, and astonishingly, representatives of the governing parties hadn't shown. And as the meeting went on, I started to appreciate why that might be. The people in this room, salt of the earth people, often small business people who work hard, invest to ensure the next generation of young New Zealanders are cared for and ready for school. These people were ropeable. They were tired of the regulatory overreach, of the Byzantine rules and the abuses of power that they perceived coming from the government. They said, all I wanted to do rather was help young children discover their potential. And all I actually do is fear the regulator that is supposed to work for all of us. After all, it's our taxes that pay for them. And I looked at this and I thought, surely we can do better. And fast forward a little way, the Ministry for Regulation was formed, and its first sector review involved going out and hearing from people like the ones in that room today and asking them, what is it that has made it so difficult and so frustrating to do what should be a very rewarding and positive job, and mostly is. And the Ministry for Regulation assembled a long dossier of concerns. It assessed them against the need for sensible regulation, and it has come up with broadly 3 changes that Cabinet signed off. One is a simplification of the rules and a binning of rules that make no sense. That's happening separately from this bill. Another is transferring the responsibility for regulating to the Education Review Office, who are very good at doing this in my view, away from the Ministry of Education, which I don't believe has done a consistently good job. It tends to depend on the region. It also means that the regulator is separate from the policymaker, which is generally good practice for regulation. Those are 2 parts of the change coming out of this sector review. But there's a third part which is encapsulated in this bill. And it is setting out that there should be a person called, in this case, the Director of Regulation. It's not a new position. There's a person that does something like this. But they're going to actually have their responsibilities set out in legislation. They're going to have the rights of people who run early childhood centres set out in legislation, the purpose of regulating set out in regulation, and in particular, things like enabling choice for parents is in this legislation. Things like ensuring childhood safety is in this legislation. Things like ensuring those things with the least possible regulation so that the people like the ones in that room aren't tied up in endless red tape. And where the rubber hits the road, and I happen to be the Minister responsible for early childhood, there was a wonderful place called Country Kindy in the Manawatu. These are salt of the earth people. There's the member for Rangatiki right there, and I'm sure she knows it well. These people were harangued, harassed, shut down to within an inch of their life. And as the Minister responsible, I was very keen to intervene. To this day, I don't fully understand what they were accused of doing wrong, because when I brought in the Secretary to ask, the former Secretary that is, she didn't have a good answer. I went into the Country Kindy and was almost suffocated by a hug from the person in charge because they were so relieved that this harassment had ended. Well, what this legislation sets out to do is give people like her the ability to tap on the sign and say, you regulate for a purpose, we pay your taxes. Child safety? Absolutely, 100%, 200%. Giving parents choice and information and making it clear what's needed and what's going on? Absolutely. But overreach and abuse of power and overburdensome regulation and red tape that stops us doing our real job, that's yesterday's news. Madam Speaker, this is another example of how a government can hear people's concerns and aspirations out in the community, formulate a plan and bring it to fruition in this House. It's one of many examples that we're talking about just this week that makes me very proud to be part of this government. It makes me proud to be a member of the ACT Party, and it is going to make, I believe, a lot of people even prouder to work in the early childhood sector, because this statute will ensure that they are treated by law with the respect that they deserve.